All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? How's everybody doing on this unfortunate day for the left? Why is it unfortunate? Yeah. Yeah. So what's going on? I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry you're feeling bad today. What am I wearing? I'm wearing what I want to. Oh, yes. Yes, I am wearing what I want to. Nobody tells me what to do anymore. I'm off Twitter. I'm off Twitter. Twitter has decided to screw me over and has locked me out of my account. And yeah, so here we are. We're done. I appreciate that, Jason. Thank you so much. Ah, shit. So yeah, here we are, everybody, having a good time. What do y'all think I should get a backdrop? I've thought about getting like a communist flag for my backdrop, like I used to have. Maybe um, like a pipe and drape type thing. I just changed rooms, so I'm doing it from a different room now. So yeah. Oh, you don't like this hat? Oh, the Biden administration showing how hateful they are. Yeah, I get that. I mean, we knew what was coming, right? We all knew what was coming. Yeah, R.I.P. Full commie. That's right, Cosmo. Get out of there. They done. They took everything from me, but they can't take my Nerf guns. Hey, do it good. Welcome. I appreciate all of y'all who have joined the Discord. If you're interested in joining the Discord, you know, let me know. Let somebody in the chat know. We can get you an invite. RIP Lucas indeed. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Oh shit, Jason, you got locked out of your account as well? Oh shit. Hey, Jamie. Hey, sexy yourself. Hey, Shubel, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Today we are going to be talking about Black Shirts and Reds by Michael Parenti. I quite enjoy this book. I know a lot of y'all enjoy this book. It's not a hard book, so I'm explaining it. I'm talking about it as a introduction, so you may be interested in reading it yourself. Thank you so much, Cosmo Zombie, for subscribing. You know I always appreciate you doing that. Subscription for Parenti. You know I don't got no pictures of Parenti in here. I should put like yellow Parenti in here. Hey, real neoliberal, welcome. That is a terrible name, but I do love you. Why am I an anarcho-tanky? Wow. Hey, Grim, welcome. Thank you. Blue Jays, nothing happened as far as I know to T and Spin's account except they, I think whenever he deleted and came back, it just all went away. So he's slowly building back his account. But I'll tell you one thing I'm sad about. Oh, you making art with B? That's so awesome. Tell B I said hello. Um, oh yeah, you know, Exquisitor Vorbis, I heard about that. I gotta, I think I gotta change that. I don't know how to fix it though. I meant to fix it before today, but I got caught up with Twitter blocking my shit, and then I just got busy at work today, and so I didn't do it. The long and the short of it, I didn't do it. So nobody subscribe, nobody follow me, or else it's gonna mess me all up. My stream's gonna freeze every time. Grim told me about this last week, y'all. Grim literally was like, Gomer, your shit is messing up every time you have an alert. And I was like, I know, I need to fix that. And then I didn't. Hey, Lanny, yes, indeed, my Twitter is messed up. Indeed. Indeed, my Twitter is all kinds of messed up. I believe I am off Twitter now. Twitter has decided that it hates me. So we're done. Me and Twitter, we're over. We're through. The days of Comrade Gomer are done. Now I'm just regular ass Gomer. Hey Grim, your gun belt came in today. That's awesome. That's terrific. Hey Tyranno, welcome. I know, Liz. I know, socialist. It's very sad. It's sad for me too. Start something on Mastodon. What's Mastodon? I've been thinking about starting a TikTok. I have. People have been telling me that TikTok and Twitch are the only good social media anymore. Taking up arms for a people's revolution against Twitter. Thank you, Exquisitive Orbis. I'm glad I'm still your comrade. What? Hey, Elisa, what does tsundere mean? I mean, I don't speak modern weeb Japanese. Oh, you texted me on Twitter. Ass, Gomer. What do you mean ass? Tsundere means like to. Um, oh, you're not having good luck on TikTok. Oh, someone who likes somebody but they act mean. I see. Um, oh, you can hear me now? Oh, good. Okay. Hey, y'all tell me how long it goes without like if it messes up the thing, tell me how long it goes. I'll just stay like this for like 5 seconds if the stream messes up while it does that. Hey, Amateur Barry, welcome. A lot of y'all forever Gomer Leninist socialists. I love you so much. Parenti is indeed a Chad. It was only like half a second. Okay, I'll just pause for a second. I'll vogue for a second. And then I'll start talking again. Okay. I should be the next Eminem. Gomerism is love. Gomerism is life. I swear to God, people who some people listen to my streams on YouTube, but they just listen to it like an audiobook. I feel bad for them because the first 5 minutes are just absolute garbage. It's just, I mean, first 10 minutes, just goofing off and constantly. Thank you, Tierno, for those no yeah for sure's in the chat. I do love that. Gomer is T and Spitness. Y'all should be T and Spitness. Don't be Gomerist. Gomerism is an idiot philosophy. What's the worst, Elisa? What do you mean is the worst? What is the worst? The Wi-Fi is terrible. I'm sorry, Jamie. I'm sorry to hear that. Is this garbage or is it healing? Lucy, what do you mean? Oh, I froze again. Oh, beans. Bean brain. Oh, shit. Y'all tell me if my stream freezes, all right? So, oh, thank you, Jason. You know, Elisa is very cute as well. Everybody knows this. I would say everybody on Twitter is in love with Elisa, but I'm not saying anything new when I say that. Everybody already knew that. So, all right. You don't think the first 5 minutes is garbage? Oh, thank you, Lucy. Lucy, I just put two and two together that you're my Lucy here in LA. I for the longest time thought you were a different Lucy here on stream than the one I talked to. Oh, you like this jacket, Graham? I appreciate that. It is okay, Cosmos Zombie, to be in love with Comrade T and Spittin. T and Spittin is a very lovable person. I know it's very stupid, Lucy. It's very stupid. Ah, shit. Okay. So, Blackshirts and Reds, everybody. This is a great book. It is an easy book. It is a difficult to read book in some ways because it kind of lays shit out very plainly. You know, Blood in My Eye lays out the American carceral system, the police industrial the prison industrial complex out very well. Well, Michael Parenti lays out anti-communism very well. So I gotta say, this is a good book, but it is equally difficult but interesting, just like Blood in My Eye. Elijah, you're not late at all. We just started. I've been bullshitting for 15 minutes. Straight up. Lucy, I'm sorry. I done told you I'm an idiot. But now I just like you even more because I liked Lucy from the stream. I like you in real life, so here we all are. So, Lisa, don't leave the chat. Let's go, y'all. Let's get it started in here. That's awesome, socialist. Blood in My Eye is my favorite book. Straight up, my favorite book ever. I have decided it is my favorite book. Anybody who don't like Blood in My Eye has got an answer for it. So, all right, let's get started up in here. Okay, so who is this book for? Thank you, El Press. I appreciate that. I bought it the other day. I need a couple of LA hats because my partner don't like my camouflage LA hats. So I was like, I'm gonna get a regular Dodgers hat. Um, that's right. That's right, Cosmo Zombie. You got it right. Anybody don't like blood in my eye? I won't make any actual threats of violence because I'm trying not to get banned from Twitch like I'm banned from Twitter. But I've been singing a song in my head. You can't hurt me. I'm banned on Twitter. You know how it goes. Oh shit. So yeah, I've had long hair before, Lanny. I've had long hair down to my shoulders before. In fact, I have a friend who every time he talks to me, he's always like, "I remember the first day you walked in the door of the AA meeting. You had your hair down to your shoulders. You had motorcycle jacket on and a motorcycle helmet in your hand, and your pants had holes that were so big." Because I was wearing these jeans with like holes in the knees, but they said they're so big that your pants were flopping open and everybody could see your whole legs. My friend's like, "Who is this motherfucker?" Ah, shit. It was funny. Elijah, thank you so much for subscribing. I do appreciate that. You are the best. Sounds like it was not the '90s. It was only like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But they did think I looked like Uncle Jesse from Full House. So, all right, let's get it cracking. Who is this book for? This book is for believers in democratic capitalism, right? So that they can hear something different from what you're taught in school. If you believe in quote unquote democratic capitalism, this book is to kind of put some of your false beliefs at rest, hopefully. The book is good for people who are new to left wing thought. So, a lot of Lenin's work is really good for explaining exactly why opportunism is bad. But what this book really shows you is that the wages of opportunism is death. Right? Um, so, so yeah, this is a really good book for people who are new to left wing thought because it's easy too, right? It shows how bad things happen whenever the communists lose. It shows what fascism really is like. It shows what anti-communism is like on the left, and it says, so if you don't be communist, that's what you get, right? It's also good for talking to both right and left anti-communists, right? So people who say, "Oh no, I'm a socialist, I'm not a communist," right? People who say, "Oh, those damn commies, blah blah blah," right? It's for both people because it tries to show what communism in practice is really like. So today I'm going to give a big warning. Wait, big warning. I will be talking about the USSR today, so I'm sorry. I got to do it. I don't usually do it, but today we're going to talk about the USSR a little bit. So y'all stick with me. I love y'all. Please don't get angry. But, I left out some of his criticism. He does criticize left anti-communism from, yeah, you talk about Iron Front leftists, but also even talking about certain libertarian socialists have a very strong anti-communist bent. He goes in on them. I'm not going to go in his chapter where he goes in on them. I'm just kind of skipping over a little bit, just because you can read it in the book. And I ain't trying to start up any controversy, but straight up, there's a lot of different leftist anti-communists, and liberals are more anti-communist even than conservatives are a lot of times because they have to prove, "Oh no, I'm not a communist, I'm a regular person, so blah blah blah," you know what I mean? um and yeah, Tierno, you're right, oftentimes they're not actually outwardly anti-communist whenever they're talking to communists, right? They're not going to fight you. What they're going to say is, "I'm just like you, I'm just less of an idealist," you know what I mean? So anyway, let's go. Yes. So finally, this book is interesting for people who are just interested in history, right? Even if all that previous shit is beyond your pay grade and you don't really care about that, this book is really good for people who want to learn some real history because it's from angles that are just not often presented. As in, it talks about the capitalist, the aspects of fascism that are not simply governmental, right? The relationship between capital and fascism, between big business and capitalism and fascism, and then it also talks about how life was in some ways under under the USSR, right? So it talks about the social aspects of life under the USSR. So those are two things that just never get presented, right? It's always like doom and gloom, and Nazis bad. They did the bad things. There were no businesses involved. It was just the government. Don't look behind the curtain, right? Don't worry about Ford. Don't worry about Kodak. Don't worry about Coca-Cola, right? Right? Shit. Yeah, Lisa, I agree. That whole "I'm like you, just less of an idealist" shit is the worst. Um, you know who I've been seeing say that shit a lot recently is the people who are most beloved on the gentle sock dem sock left, like AOC has been on that shit recently. So don't look behind the Iron Curtain. Yes. So continuing. Plutocrats choose autocrats. I love the way he titles his chapters. So I pull out my gun, one, I'm gonna shoot you both. Um, so Plutocrats Choose Autocrats is a really great title of a book. Of a chapter, because he talks about how the rich people are the ones who put the bad people in power, right? Lenin talks about the thousand strings between the capitalist state and the capitalist businesses, right? That they are totally unified in the end in a democracy like ours. But what he's talking about here, what Parenti is talking about, is when shit goes bad, right? When things start going bad for capitalists, and they start putting worse and worse leaders in place, right? So plutocrats choose the autocrats. It is not the people who of themselves just decide, you know what, we want a more oppressive regime in the government, right? So he says they get put in power somehow, and people are led there not by the government suddenly turning more and more fascist, but rather by businesses pushing the government to be more and more fascist, right? There is a propping up of the fascists financially that happens by the big businesses. So, yeah, capitalism loves fascists, straight up. So, why is it in history books that they never talk about the class aspects of fascism, right? We talk about the class aspects of governments quite a bit as communists, but history books just seem to glance right over that shit. It's like under fascism, there's rich people and there's poor people, but look at all this bad thing that the Italians did during World War II. You know what I mean? How do they keep an economy going? And obviously everything gets pointed towards the war machine, but like there's more to it than that, right? Like how do we do a Marxist analysis of the fascist government while it is in power? So what do businesses do? Like, what's it like for businesses? Are there any social services? Like, is there unemployment under fascism? Is there adoption agencies under fascism? Right. So after World War One, y'all just keep that in your heads. I'm gonna keep going. All right. Think about things that maybe you haven't thought about before. What is like basically what are things really like? What's day-to-day life like under fascism for people who are not actively being crushed by fascism? So after World War One, the Italian rich landowners and businessmen are struggling really bad, right? And the same things happening in Germany. But first, we're going to talk about Italy. All right. So they have to cut the wages in order to stay alive. These businesses have to cut their wages, right? But there is a really strong labor union in Italy at this time. So the labor unions are fighting these wage cuts, and the businesses are starting to go under. And not just the small businesses, the big businesses. So the fascists start talking to the big businesses, right? And they start off, all fascists in this time, they started off as like socialists, but they were just social climbers, right? Socialism was popular at the time, so that's why I say these strong labor unions were in power. Labor was very popular in the in the 30s, right? After communism won in Russia, there starts to be a lot of energy across Europe for more social change. They say, hey, look, communism's working over there. What's going on for us, right? So the states were afraid, so they allowed these stronger labor unions to take charge. So the fascists, who were social climbers because they were, getting in line with the energy of the time, where everybody was saying, "Hey, let's have strong social safety networks. Let's have a strong labor movement," right? Whenever shit starts going bad, they step and talk to the government. They're like, "Hey, we can help you out. We know what's going on." Hey, what's bothering me today? I'm a different kind of cowboy today. I'm a drugstore cowboy today. Anyway, so the fascists have no real ideology, right? Their ideology is militant nationalism and anti-socialism. That's the only thing you can ever say is definitely there. But what's interesting is the way things progress, the way that they present themselves, and what they end up doing when they're in power is always the same. Even in very different cultures, they will do the same things. So they have no ideology, but they end up with a more concrete way of doing things than even socialists have, which is very interesting to me. This ain't yeehaw, this is yee nah. All right, so in Germany, the German workers also had strong labor unions, right? They had won battle for the 8-hour day, right? They were really, the labor unions were kicking ass at this time. Now, that doesn't mean that the communists were getting into power. In fact, in many ways, it's the opposite, right? Is that these social gains were kind of making people feel all right. The government was easing off, and they were kind of heading towards a like Norway style, like Nordic style social democracy. So big businesses start lavishly funding Hitler's campaign, right? Hitler also started out like talking socialism. He took over the Nazi party. They were all talking socialism. Then he says, actually, you know what? He talks to the businesses. He talks to the government. He's like, nope, actually, we're going to throw away all the socialist stuff and we're going to just keep the nationalist stuff. So, yeah, this is absolutely going to get into right-wing populism, Grim. Absolutely. Yeah, what's bothering me today, we're going to talk all about how fascism rises, because that's really what the first couple chapters of Blackshirts and Reds is about, So these big businesses, as soon as Hitler says, okay, I want to protect you, I want to do this hyper-nationalist campaign, and we're going to blame the Jews for all of our problems, they're like, yes, we love it. We give you. They gave him actual cars and loudspeaker systems to put in the cars, and they paid for more plane ticket rides than any politician had taken before. Hitler literally revolutionized the way of doing politics as far as trying to hit many, many cities in a single day. He took 50 different plane rides in his campaign, right? So yeah, and the press, of course, because it's owned by the bourgeoisie as well, props up Hitler, right? And it starts putting down the communists, starts saying like the communists are trying to take over this country and are doing nothing but hurting us, blah blah blah. It's the communists is the reason we're in this big financial mess. Look, we got all these social safety net things, we got all this labor union shit, and then of course the country starts going down the tubes, which is completely ass backwards, but still that's what the papers are saying because the papers are run by the goddamn rich, right? So this is just like in America, right? You will never hear the truth from the newspaper or from news media online, for basically anywhere where you're not paying some other communist to give you the news, like in a dedicated communist, like small shitty communist online website or something like that. You are getting lies because it is the bourgeoisie who is funding these people to. What do you mean? Where's Gomer? You know what? Hold on, Kenny. You gonna talk shit? Hold on. Here's Gomer. How's that, huh? You didn't see that coming, did you? Yeah. All right. Change in tone when Bezos bought WAPO. Yeah, no, I didn't see that, but I believe it. Hold on, I'm gonna tie this shit up on the top. Oh, it's you, Kenny. They killed me on Twitter. They kicked me off Twitter. I'm done. They haven't responded to my emails or anything, so I think I'm done, dude. Gomer went home and took his AK with him. Okay, so Hitler wins the election, right? Fuck them indeed. Did he get his hat? Socialist, that's so funny. Tell your husband I said hello. Tell him I said hello. That's fun. Full cutie. Okay, so what's very interesting to me here is that the Soc Dems refused an alliance with the communists, right? Literal, like the Nazis had taken over and they had not been killing the Jews at this point yet, but they were blaming the Jews for everything. They had a truly racist program from the get go. Like, even though they hadn't talked about the final solution, they had literally still talked about like putting Jews in camps, stripping them of all their riches, stuff, right? He says, "Sup, very nice. Thank you so much." Um, so, so it's very funny to me. This is one of them times where the Soc Dems show their true colors and show that they are aligned with Capital because Capital says, "Hey, we're propping up the Nazis," and so the Soc Dems are like, "Well, guess we are too," right? So this is why I don't fuck with Soc Dems, because really they are oftentimes confused people who want to be good people but aren't sure how. But functionally, whenever push comes to shove, a lot of times they end up supporting the bad guys. They're liberals, exactly. So yeah, and y'all know the rest of the story. So ain't this really fucking weird though? Social fascists, that's right. So up until this point, Italy and Germany were very different cultures. They were considered very different cultures, right? Italians were looked on as like, kind of relaxed, passionate people, and the Germans were seen as extremely strict and rule-oriented. Like all the stereotypes of Italy and Germany today were even more so back then, right? They were they were very different, and yet the fascist regimes took power in a very similar way, and then they ended up with very similar programs. Right? One could say that Hitler and Mussolini were very different as well, but the programs ended up looking the same. And when we talk about the programs, what we mean is the social programs, the economic programs. Right? Even though they went after different people, even though, and if we look at like fascist Japan as well, they may have done somewhat different things as far as the things that they're known for, but hey, comrade, clever name. But yeah, as far as what they ended up doing financially, it looks very similar, right? And why? It's because they are always funded by big business. They lack any real ideology, right? So what it shows is that big businesses are multinational, right? And because they're multinational, they drive fascism from a cross-border type way, right? It doesn't have anything to do with actually propping up the nation, even though nationalism is the fundamental core value of fascism, right? Y'all talking shit on social democrats in the chat. Yeah, I mean, I ain't too mad at them, but yeah, they ain't allies until they become allies, straight up. And they ain't allies until they change their ideology. That's just life. If you're a social democrat and you're wondering why you're getting hated on by all these commies in the chat, well, this may tell you why. The history of who social democrat sides with is maybe going to tell you why. But getting back to this, big businesses are they're multinational and they go wherever the capital leads them, right? They have no they have no loyalty to any state or any people. So that's something that we're going to get into in later chapters, and I think I'm gonna do this series in two parts for Blackshirts and Reds, because it's worth continuing to discuss. But yeah, so these companies you see right here: Adidas, Kodak, BMW, Volkswagen, Coke, IBM, Hugo Boss, so many. Ford isn't on here, but Ford also, they're all Nazi collaborators, right? Hey, Castle, how you doing? So this is how it goes whenever they take over. And this is going to sound real familiar to some of y'all. Minimum wage goes away. Overtime pay goes away. Safety regulations go away. Labor unions are destroyed. BP2, there you go, Squizzer Vorbis. And then social programs are also almost all destroyed. Like they'll have what they end up doing is they end up having social programs that are driven by charities, right? Driven by people paying out of pocket to help each other. This is literally what's happened during the pandemic, but even before that, this is what the Republicans say we should do as a nation, right? The Republicans will say things like we need to get rid of the dole and let churches help take care of people, right? Let people take care of people is the kind of shit that they say, right? This should sound oddly familiar because this is exactly what the fuck has happened in the United States in the last few years. So, workers can be fired for no reason. Don't that sound a lot like right to work, right? That's funny, Comrade Clever Name. I heard you on a stream the other day. I heard you talking on a stream the other day. Yeah, this is Texas. This is most of America. This is Florida. This is this is all of the South basically. Anytime that Republicans get into power, this is the type of program that they put forward. Now, that doesn't mean that Democrats are any kind of solution to this. In fact, Democrats are simply a stopgap. They're an anti-ratcheting effect where they take all the leftist sentiment that comes up whenever Republicans fuck around and they reroute it into shit that doesn't work and just bide time until Republicans get back in power so that they can keep this program going and fucking around with social programs. Absolutely, Jamie, the USA is ideologically fascist. I want you to read Blood in My Eye because what he says in there is he says that there is no difference in the fascism between the USA and other countries. The fascism of the past that was really awful was fascism when it is weakly in power. Whenever fascism is strongly in power, we get the kind of state that we have today, where everything is considered hunky dory. It's all about freedom, right? But they have a carceral state where one in three black men have felony records, right? So, continuing. State-owned businesses are privatized. Utilities are privatized. Y'all ready for the water companies to all be privatized? You ready for your electrical grid to just fucking fall apart constantly because PEG and other companies just can't keep their shit together, right? Wages get cut and the buying power is lowered. Who's experienced this, right? Even though we quote unquote make more, even though our grandparents talk about how they made $2 an hour or whatever, who's able to buy a house? Not me. Fucking not me. Right? I make more than I ever did in my life and I can't buy a house. I don't know if any of y'all in chat own a house, but I'm going to guess that most of y'all don't, right? I believe it too, hit good. Agribusiness is subsidized. Isn't this exactly like what we talk about in the United States, right? Beef, milk, those businesses are subsidized where vegetable businesses don't get subsidized, right? Heavy industries propped up by taxes. Isn't that what happened, right? We get bailouts after bailouts, right? I'm talking about fascist Italy and Germany, and y'all probably think I'm talking about the United States today, right? Who here just for a second forgot that I was talking about 1930s Germany and Italy? Who here forgot I was talking about that for a second? Straight up. Yeah, Cosmo, exactly. So, honestly, I do too. When I'm reading this shit, I start thinking about America immediately, right? But this is shit that is literally cyclical. Whenever the economic power starts slipping away from a fascist government, which is a capitalist government, there is no distinction, then this shit starts popping up. So, and then taxes eliminated for the rich and for businesses, but regular people have to pay more taxes, right? That was literally Trump's tax plan, and it was also literally the plan in 1930s Germany. Like, that's what they did. So, yeah. Hey, Dads Wax, how you doing? It's been a minute since we talked. Yeah, I got to get you into the Discord. Wait, are you in the Discord server? I got to get you in the Discord server. I want all my friends from Twitter to get into this Discord server because I don't want to lose touch with y'all. I'm happy when you come to stream. I want you to come to stream, but I also want to talk to you on a regular basis too. So, anyway, yes. Next up is the right co-opting of social justice language. Are you ready, Comrade Kenny? Because I'm gonna get there in 2 slides. Yeah, Jason, absolutely. Just send T and spit in the message. So why do people put up with this, right? Why did the left lose in Germany? Why did the left lose if they were so strong? If they had these labor unions, this huge labor movement going, why did they lose power to the fascists, right? Dad's Wax, if you could get in Discord, I would love that. Honestly, I really want to stay in touch with you. I don't want to lose contact. So The left, straight up, the answer is the left was not strong enough to stand up to the fascists, right? They had a weak, actual left, militant left movement. The communists were weak, straight up. So it's very similar to today, right? If the fascists tried to take over today, they would fucking win. And that's why I do what I do. It's why Comrade Kenny does what he does. It's why a lot of us are trying to talk to people about communism and be open about it and be real about it, is because we are trying to get ready just in case shit goes really sideways, that we will not, immediately lose. And we cannot depend on the labor movement, right? The labor movement is good, but the labor movement is not going to suddenly turn communist all of a sudden. Labor movement serves as like a training ground for communists. A lot of NGOs can serve as awakening points for communists, but it cannot be the end-all be-all of the communists, right? Because straight up, we'll lose. We'll lose unless we have dedicated Communist Party doing dedicated communist shit. Absolutely, Comrade Clever Name. Exactly. And in part, I'm sure because the U.S. government was sending over troops too. I mean, the U.S. government was constantly trying to fuck with the Russian government there. Right? Before and after 1917, the U.S. government was sending troops. They spent $2 billion or something like that. Politics, how does it happen beyond just saying the communists are too weak? Politics are always the rational manipulation of irrational symbols. All right? So this is something that I want everybody to really think about. Symbolism is very important in politics. In fact, if you listen to any politician for long enough, you will hear them repeating phrases that call up symbols. Dad's wax, absolutely right. And anytime we talk about settlers, that's the first thing I think of, is how, like in that book, how settlers just spells out again and again and again how the white labor movement has turned its back on people of color again and again and again. So whether or not you believe in the central thesis of settlers, the history is undeniable. So the rational manipulation of irrational symbols. You look at that "We the People" on this Boogaloo boy's arm. You look at his American flag mask, right? This type shit is vital. The symbolism and the use and reuse of symbolism, the remixing of symbols to call up things from the past, to operate on a emotional subconscious level, and to operate on a level that calls back, that recalls your programming from childhood, right? Yeah, it's Pavlovian, exactly. So that you don't have to actually come up with answers, right? You don't have to actually think through this shit. It gives you an easy response that you can just keep on going, right? So politics is all about that. Politicians thoroughly understand this, right? So when we talk about propaganda, we talk about how we have to do this too, right? We have to straight up discuss with honesty the things the aesthetics that matter to us, and to use this same psychological language, right? So anyway, leftist politics, a lot of times we have to do it to an extent, and yet we cannot rely entirely on that like the right can. The right can remix symbols and ideas in an infinite different ways, right? And they don't have to stay true to anything, right? They have the power of big business to just barrage people with the remix symbols, and to not make them not think too hard about shit, to make lies seem true, right? But we have no money, and we have no power as far as we have no informational power and shit, right? So we have to basically just talk truth. So the leftists will talk about existing divisions, right? We'll talk about the problems of society, whereas fascists can deny them. They can say, no, we are one nation. We are one people, right? And that's why I don't fucking trust class reductionists a lot of times, right? Because they take on a lot of that. Parenti calls it monistic, so like all based around one, right? They really talk a lot about unity and rather than looking at the problems. So when fascists have the same tactics as you need to look at what the fuck you're talking about, right? Because that should be a warning bell. So I don't fuck with class reductionists because so often it's not just about talking about class being very important, right? It's also talking about fucking it has this focus on unity to in the face of people who are talking about their real problems, right? It's unity over everything. Don't bring anything up. Don't make anybody feel bad. We are in one fight. We have one enemy, right? So that's some bullshit. Um, Oh, real neoliberal. Goodbye. Goodbye, real neoliberal. Um, so, Marxism, racism, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Them class reductionists tend to be nationalistic. I mean, class reductionists are ones who unironically talk about a USSA, right? Um, so, pseudo revolutionary rhetoric upholding existing social order works very well on downtrodden members of the dominant class. All right? Marxists with American flags. Yeah, that's some wildness. um, so, I want y'all to think about that for just a second. I want y'all to think about white boys. Don't think about it too hard, but think about white boys for a bit. Think about people like me. Think about how um, we are so easily drawn into to excitement about violence, right? Violent rhetoric, violent imagery. It's a part of our identity, right? Um, the skulls on everything and guns everywhere, right? I'm not saying we need to get rid of that. I'm saying it's telling. So we love violent revolutionary rhetoric, right? And if it helps us stay up top, right? If we can have our violent revolutionary rhetoric as well as feeling, our violent rhetoric as well as feeling revolutionary, as well as upholding our social order without having to be challenged whatsoever, right? That's a recipe for white folks to get excited. And that's what you see, right? That's what you see with the book. They have this pseudo revolutionary rhetoric, but at the end of the day, it's all bullshit. They're co-opting socialist language, which gets into my next slide. I'm not following up too much with the chat. Y'all are all going nuts over here. It's really great to watch. I'm reading it. It's very interesting. And I just got to say that someone said that some streamer that called themselves a communist was anti-Puerto Rican independence, and that is that is fucking stupid. That is unbelievably stupid. Menace D, do you mean did I make these slides? Yes, I make my slides every week. Twice a week I make these slides. I base it off of books that I read, and I try to condense them down to something simple for people to talk about and listen to, and then hopefully be inspired to read later. But yeah, these are my slides. Yeah, that's interesting too. Hey, good talking about it, learning about it through occultism. Makes a lot of sense. I just want y'all to look at that "We the People" tattoo one last time on this guy's arm. I mean, ain't that shit fucking wild? Ain't that shit fucking wild? These people who claim to be like so revolutionary and then holding up like having literal Constitution tattoos, like racist slave owner document tattoos on them. If that ain't telling, I don't know what is. Shit. Okay, so they steal. So this is something that Parenti says directly. They steal the left's thunder, word for word. They steal the left's thunder, right? So fascists will look at what socialists are doing and they'll say, all right, what's working? Let's do that. They may use irrational symbols, but that doesn't mean they're irrational themselves. The emotional response that socialist symbols get in people are powerful, right? So they just steal them wholesale. And then they route people towards basically supporting corporations. So what are the ways that they do this, right? They adopt the program and condemn the ideas, right? So mass movements, protests, youth organizations, right? doing things that are popular with the young kids. And that's something that that's something everybody's talked about. Both Lenin and Mao talked about how when you get the youth, you have you can have victory, right? So doing parades and rallies, like when you look at old videos of Eugene Debs talking and shit, right? It's very exciting. There's passion and there's power to it. And so these people want to capture that type of shit, right? These people want to do that same stuff. So they look at the Black Lives Matters movement and they say, let's do that. Let's co-opt that, right? So the Boog, low level, are just running on instinct. They're not thinking this shit through. But the Boog at the high level, the people who are organizing this shit, who may or may not even be there, right? They may or may not even be there. A lot of Trump's rallies were not even organized by people who were on the ground whatsoever, right? So yeah, they organize these things and they try to emulate whatever socialist movement is going on at the time, but say like, hey, look, this is an alternative. This is a deeper, truer way of looking at it, right? So I'm going to read what Comrade Kenny says. If you hate nations, that's because you're looking at nations from a white person's perspective. Looks at hierarchy in terms of dominance because that's what whiteness employs, nationalism, not relation, which is how African and indigenous people do. Yeah. Just something to consider in terms of how we already believe colors of reality, pun intended. Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, I will say that it's important to recognize that there are colonized nations within the United States. So whether you want to get rid of nations one day or not, we have nations within nations as it stands. And that's something that I think it's important to start with what exists and what's real, right? I'm getting back to this shit, sorry. People focus symbols, right? So they focus on symbols that are about liberation, people, etc. So look at this flag, right? They got the pride flag and then the Black Lives Matter, the Black Power symbol, right? Sandwiched around the Boogaloo symbol, right? And look at this Boogaloo boy holding up a sign saying Boogaloo stands with all Eric Garner, all these people who were killed by police violence, right? And this other Boogaloo next to him saying permanently quarantine racism, right? So cute, so fucking like, oh, let's all hold hands and we support your movement, right? It's bullshit and it's been going on since the 30s because I want you to look at that other picture, Toad them Marxismus, right? That is a German fascist parade right there, right? So before they totally kicked out the socialist the socialist program, they were calling themselves Marxists. Straight up. So the shit that you see of them trying to co-opt leftist symbols today has been going on for 100 years. A literal 100 years. All right? That means death to Marxism? Whoops. Oh, man, I don't speak German. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Oh shit. Well, never mind all that. Getting to the next slide. I mean, if you read Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, they absolutely do start with a socialist program that they absolutely disregard. But yeah, whoops. Anyway, I'm sure somebody's going to clip this and show how stupid Gomer gets when he gets excited. Anyway, so they got their own thing too. Good work, team. So what do they have here? What does the right wing have? They have the banner was a bad example. Cosmo Zombie. All right, let me reroute. Get a little less hype. So they have this optimism, right? Streamer debunked. The optimism that they have is always happening, right? This is very important. There is optimism in liberals as well. Liberals believe that things are getting better all the time. They believe in a positive upward trend in history. Hell yeah, Grim. So that's something that the left doesn't have, right? We don't have this optimism. We can't say that we think things are getting better because we know things are not getting better. Straight up. I mean, ask any Ask anybody in the chat who's not white if they think things are getting better in the United States, if they think racism is getting better, if they think treatment of non-white people is getting better. I would love to hear anybody in the chat who's not a white person, what they think about that, if things have gotten better since the 60s. So they will always instigate racial hostility, right? They always will have some racist component to the program. It is in every single fascist program will be some kind of racism. It's inevitable. So, end of the day, if you don't notice a racist program, there's a fairly good chance that they're anti-Semitic. So that's the one that's always lurking in the wings. So yeah, exactly, Chantilly. I mean, y'all listen to Chantilly. Y'all know I ain't saying exactly Chantilly like I know better. I'm simply saying that I knew that somebody in the comments would back me up, and I'm not surprised that it's Chantilly. So yeah, they always say things like government is the enemy, right? Even though at the same time as saying government is the enemy, they are increasing the repressive power of the state, right? So you will see Republicans do that right now. They talk about how they want small government this, small government that, and what do? They continually grow the police budgets. So finally, I bet y'all are forgetting that I'm talking about 1930s Italy again, right? I bet y'all are still thinking that I'm talking about the United States today. I am again talking about 1930s Germany, 1920s Italy. So they put up these media hyped crowd pleasers, right? So the people back then were very, like, they excited the crowds, right? The way that they talked, the way that they pounded the table, the way that they pointed at enemies got people going. So Trump, like everybody who says Trump is a fascist or whatever, and like draws all these things with like showing Trump in fascist regalia, it's like part of that is liberals being cute, and part of that is like barefaced honesty. Like the program and the methods are the same, right? I mean, I do have Trump on screen. Yeah, it's true. So, and also they always talk about social services being leeches while robbing the coffers, right? They're always doing things that will pump money into industry and defense while saying that the real problem is the social services. So yeah, I'm simply saying that I'm drawing an obvious parallel here by showing Trump, but I'm saying that, like, oh look, the previous slides were showing how it was like that in the 20s, right? Well, look, it's like this today. It really ain't no difference. Parenti here was talking about the 20s in Italy, and to me, I was just like, I cannot believe that he's not talking about Trump. I literally cannot believe he's not talking about Trump. Holy shit, is that true, Kenny? The projected net worth for Black Americans is going to be 0 or negative by 2050? That is unbelievable. Holy shit. Anyway, continuing. Y'all tell me if the stream is struggling, if my internet's gone bad or something. Oh shit. Oh no. All right, I'm gonna chill out for a second until the stream gets better. Y'all let me know when the stream gets better. I hope it gets better. Sometimes my internet over here is not great. I about had an emergency the other day where the internet just stopped working altogether. The stream is shitting itself. Oh no. Oh no. It's like frame drops. Does that mean that the vocals are fine, or that it's just like the frames dropping, or that my voice is okay? Can you hear me fine, but the video is choppy? Yeah, I got Spectrum. Of course I got Spectrum. Everybody's got Spectrum. Poof, Nerf guns. Okay, so Parenti talked a lot about how old fascism is the same as new fascism, how things haven't changed that much. The program hasn't changed. They've been doing the same shit for 100 years, right? So now let's talk about something different. So the U.S. has these presumptions of power, all right? The U.S. talks about things where it says, we're the good guy. We have to do a little bit of violence overseas because we are like world police, right? We are trying to take care of democracy. We're trying to promote liberal freedom, the ideals of the modern age, et cetera, right? So let's break down all the things that the U.S. says that is straight up just bomb, all right? So, and y'all please tell me when my stream gets back to sounding good again, because truth be told, I understand sometimes it gets shitty. That's just life. Okay, so the first thing that the U.S. leaders say is that they have a right to limit other nations' economic development, right? So that's sanctions. Straight up, that's sanctions. Oh shit, chat seems like it's gone down. Y'all ain't telling me nothing, so I wonder if it's all fucked up. Try lowering my bit rate on my streaming program. I have no fucking idea how to do that. Hold up. Themes. I'm looking around. I'm looking for ways to do that. Here's settings tab, stream. Can't change them settings. Output. Yeah, I'm using OBS. I am a boomer. I'm sorry. I'm trying to fix this shit. Video. I don't fucking know. I have no fucking idea how to fix this. Well, I'm going to look into this at a later date because I have no idea what to do. Sorry that my video is hot garbage. We're just going to do what we got to do. Anyway, so I'm gonna get out of these programs I got on my phone. Maybe doing that'll help. I don't know. I'm gonna get off my Wi-Fi. Maybe that'll help. We'll see. Okay, so sanctions are the U.S. literally saying that they have the right to limit other nations' economic development, right? That they have the right to tell other countries what to do, and they don't. Settings, video, output. No, can't do nothing there. Oh wait, yes I can. Use custom. No, not that. Downscale filter. No, I can't do nothing here. Oh well. Sorry, Grim. I'm using on-stream tech support. Yeah. Maybe it's in advance. I'm using Streamlabs. So process priority. I don't know what any of this shit means, man. Yeah. I appreciate y'all trying to help me, but I have no fucking idea what I'm doing here. So that's that. We don't. Like, that's silliness. To say that the U.S. has the right to limit other nations' economic development is silliness. What if the rest of the world came together and said, you know what, we don't like the way the U.S. is doing things, so nobody trade with the U.S., y'all are on your own. Would we as a person in the U.S., would we as individual people feel like that was okay? Right? No, absolutely not. We would resent that. And of course the rest of the world resents that because it is projecting force. It is literally forcing other countries' hands, right? So if we believe in sovereignty of nations, if sovereignty means anything, then of course that is not morally or ethically allowable, right? In legal ethics, it would be unallowable if we truly believe in the sovereignty of nations, right? But the point is the United States tries to control nations constantly. The U.S. must play a counter-revolutionary role to protect national interests. Well, whose interests, right? In general, regular people are better off when... holy shit, Kenny. I'm going to come back to that in a second. But many people are better off without these trade agreements that benefit big businesses, right? So if we had trade agreements that propped up local business within the U.S. by having... tariffs on things that we can't produce or that we can produce and not on things that we can't produce, right? Well, then we'd all be doing better off. The manufacturing jobs would not have been shipped overseas. That's not what the U.S. does, though. It's not to protect our interests as a nation. It's to protect the big businesses, and that's it, right? Because they are multinational. They have no loyalty to the United States, but they control the United States government. So they go wherever they can to make money, and we're left holding the bag. Now, talking counter-revolutionary roles, right? A lot of times, actually, the people that are put in place do not help the United States whatsoever as far as the people of the United States, right? And most of this shit I'm telling y'all is not new to anybody, right? But they put people in place who end up destroying the country because that's just what happens. But they get to plunder the country and sell them finished goods while buying things for very cheap, right? So the companies end up benefiting. It's not our national interest, it's only the company's interest. So the U.S. has a moral obligation to guarantee stability of free nations. They don't do that whatsoever, right? The whole concept of the moral obligation to worry about what's going on with other nations is completely against the concept of sovereignty whatsoever, but also we don't do that. Like, we say we do that, we don't do that, right? And I'm saying I don't consider myself a part of this, but I am as a citizen, right? Because we are citizens, we hold a little bit of the bag, especially as white people, right? When we talk about who's benefiting, the labor aristocracy does exist. So even though we struggle, even though I've never been able to afford a house, even though there is a smaller and smaller group who is benefiting every year, I still benefit more than other people in this country, and I know that, right? So I have to take some of the responsibility. Boomers take more responsibility, but I'm not without any responsibility, that's for sure. Finally, social change should be pursued peacefully without revolution, right? Well, that don't happen. Like, people try to do things peacefully, and then the government stomps them down, both at home and abroad. Anytime there's been a peaceful socialist revolution abroad, the CIA has fucked with it. Now, I want y'all to look at that map. That map is a map of CIA and military intervention since World War II, all right? Now, the funny thing is, if you had capitalist country interventions instead of just U.S. interventions, the map would be solid red, right? Because Argentina, all of Africa, and let's see, and of course the Middle East would absolutely be red because they got fucked with by the European powers constantly. There's some wild things going on in the chat. Kenny said that the U.S. has a third of the world's population under sanction. That is unforgivable, right? The U.S. props up 73% of dictators. Again, unforgivable, right? So we bear some of the responsibility for this. It ain't just the government. The fact that we don't rise up and overthrow the people doing this stuff is it's part of our responsibility. So as communists, we have to say that all of these attacks on the third world, all of these companies going in and plundering the third world, it's not just that we benefit, it's also that as long as we aren't stopping it, then we bear a bit of the responsibility for it happening. So, continue. Look at that. Y'all look at Kenny's PDF. I'd be really interested to see what it says. So, revolutionary violence isn't actually revolutionary violence. Now, hear me out on this, okay? So, we are always told, hey, like the tone policing never stops, right? They say, hey, if you would just not fight, not try to beat up whatever, right? Not be so violent, then we would listen. We believe in peaceful protests, blah, 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 right? Kenny coming through with receipts. Hell yeah. You'll love to see it. But ain't that the opposite of what happens, right? The reason revolutionary violence happens is because revolutions always start with a peaceful movement and then are pushed down violently, right? Fanon talks about this. Che talks about this. Che even says you have to start with the peaceful movement. Che says in guerrilla warfare, you'll never get the people on your side unless you start with the peaceful movement. But because the peaceful movement will always be pushed down, that's why he wrote the rest of the book, right? He says the peaceful movement gets pushed down, and here's what you do afterwards. But we always start with with peaceful protests, with trying to speak truth to power, right? Peaceful reform is exactly what is denied. Just think about this pandemic and who got pushed through, right? This was the closest we've come to even a fucking sock dem candidate in the Democratic Party, the furthest left candidate we've ever had in my lifetime, right? So we get close, and what do? They close ranks, but I don't ever want anybody to forget the things like Mayor Pete's almost win that was very wonky, right? That showed statistically that there was ballot box stuffing going on. I don't want y'all to forget the fact that the Democratic Party got legal permission to stuff ballot boxes, where a judge said, yeah, because the Democratic Party is an independent company and not a part of the U.S. government, they're allowed to do whatever they want in elections, right? I want y'all to think about the fact that the Democratic Party was literally threatening to keep voting stations open and only allow in-person voting until Bernie dropped. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh yeah, we can do vote by mail, right? So yeah, ballot box stuffing, threatening people, closing down voting stations in different minority neighborhoods, closing down voting stations in young people's neighborhoods, right? This is the shit that they always do. So we don't live in a fucking democracy. But the point is, the closest that we have ever come to actually having like a democratically elected reformer, even if he sucks, even like I don't fucking like Bernie anymore, right? Even if he sucks, that's the closest we've ever come to having a democratic reformer since I've been alive. And they push it down. They use action, like, because when you think about ballot box stuffing, that is violence, right? The fact that they always talk about how we won our liberty, blah blah blah, in this country through blood. The tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of patriots every so often. Whatever the fuck Thomas Jefferson said, right? Like it's violence to deny people the right to vote, and it happens all the time, right? It just shows like. Because and why do I say that it's violence? Because we have a very clear contradiction where people like you and me know for a fact that we were robbed of an election. So we're angry, so we're ready to fight. But why don't we fight? We protest, and who comes out? The cops, right? We get literally beat down whenever we try to fight this stuff. So we know, even if we don't actually take it to revolutionary violence, we know that violence is coming if we try to go against what they have pushed down against us, right? So yeah, it is ballot box stuffing is violence. There's no two ways about it. So the violence always comes from those who are preventing reform, right? When the Black Lives Matter protests kicked off this summer, right? People were just asking for change, for accountability with the police departments. Nobody was throwing bricks and shit, right? And of course, the police come out, they start violence, and then what happens? The city's burned down, right? So every protest I went to where there were no cops, there was no bad shit that happened. Every protest I went to where the cops got very violent was when shit started ratcheting up. So it's always the violence coming from capital and from the government. Hey Gio, how you doing? So the shit that we ask for isn't hard. I want you to think about the fact that they always say that it's too difficult, it's too expensive, blah, 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 right? But how expensive is it really to have free healthcare, or to have healthcare paid for by taxes, I should say? It's less expensive than doing it by insurance. How expensive is it to have public schools at work, right? Well, if you paid for it by the taxes that rich people are supposed to pay, it's actually not that expensive at all, because you can look at countries like Cuba, who have the highest per capita number of teachers on earth, and they're doing all right, even though they're under U.S. sanctions, right? So the things that we want are possible and simple, straight up. Yeah, exactly, Ken. You went to one expecting to experience huge head busting, and it was like 10,000 people, but there's no cops. Completely peaceful. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Two hit good. Exactly. You eliminate the needs for profits, and they always talk about inefficiency, blah, blah, blah. Well, profit is the most inefficient thing possible, right? So why don't we have these things? If we all agree that we want them, what stands in the way? What violent act stands in the way of us getting the things that we all know that we want and that are possible and that are cheaper? Because when you add it all up, when you know that it's possible, you know that it's simple, you know that it's cheaper, you know that people want it, right? there has to be something standing in the way that is very strong and willing to hurt people in order to keep them from getting it, because it's not inertia. People want to believe that it's inertia, right? So we have this kind of like millennials especially have this like kind of weak sauce way of talking about things, but really it's because the alternative of knowing that we're kept in our place by violence is very difficult for people to accept, right? So we look at things like, oh, there's no use in anything, oh, it's just the way the world is, blah blah blah. That is a self-defense mechanism so that we don't have to accept that we are kept in place by violence. So who's yeah, exactly. Most teachers, most doctors, despite being under crushing sanctions, and yeah, sounds like socialism works. Thank you, Potter Kimball. I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Video working better. Very good. So no one ever counts up the death tolls from secret U.S. operations overseas, global fascist regimes. Thank you so much, Mugen. I appreciate that. So what about all the sanction victims that we were just talking about, right? People who suffer under sanctions, people who are hungry because the United States has kept food away from them in the DPRK, or people who are missing insulin in Iran because of U.S. sanctions, right? We don't count up those deaths. When they count up all the Black Book of Communism deaths, right? When you stack up all the capitalism deaths next to it, boy, it's a lot higher, right? And they also don't talk about all the people who the non-white deaths of capitalism, right? Because if you stacked up the non-white deaths in particular due to capitalism, it would be astronomical, right? It's a global non-white genocide, straight up. How about child laborers? There's literal tens of millions of child laborers in countries that are purposefully destabilized by the U.S. so that we can sell them our made goods and buy their raw resources. Somalia is a perfect example of this, right? Yeah, y'all spitting in the chat. Y'all are really talking about it. So the truth is, at the end of the day, the U.S. is dedicated to blocking peaceful reform everywhere on earth, right? When we look at the U.S., we have to see a juggernaut of violence that blocks peaceful reform everywhere. It does not allow for people to do anything but violent revolution, because anytime they try to do something peacefully, it is crushed, right? Did I pause my loading screen? I don't know. Sal, I don't know. What the fuck does that mean, pause my loading screen? How do I do that? Thank you, Potter Kimball. I appreciate that. I think Sal is going to teach me something real quick, because I don't know shit about Streamlabs, and Sal helped me set this shit all up. So, okay, hold on. Sal's going to help me fix something real quick. Okay. How do I pause it? I don't fucking know how to pause this. Click the picture and it should be able to be paused. Yeah, I clicked the picture and it ain't pausing. Shit. It ain't letting me do it, friend. Nope, it ain't letting me do it. All right, I don't fucking know how to do this. Oh, maybe I should stop looping it, huh? Maybe that'll help. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that, y'all. I have no fucking idea how to run this shit. I'm trying to become a more, legitimate streamer, trying to make this shit look better, and I'm just not doing very good. So sorry. Anyway. So now let's change tacks again. We just talked about how the dang old graphic stutter in the stream. It might be, Gio. It might be. On stream tech support continues. Shit, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm not good at this shit. So academics and journalists have to be anti-communist, right? So we're going to talk about left anti-communism for a second. The academics and journalists have to be anti-communist or else they risk their credibility, and that has been going on for also 100 years. All right. So turning in colleagues as communists was globally common the entirety of the last century. All right. So it was literally a thing for people to be like, hey, I think so-and-so is a communist, or like, oh, I denounce this and that member of the community as a communist. Like, especially when you're talking about academics, they would be like, oh, this person's theories are getting a little bit too radical, a little bit too left, right? This is something that has been going on forever. This is not something that's new in academia, right? So, and it's also not something that just happened in the United States. You can look at history and you can see tons of examples of them, of academics denouncing each other as being communist, right? Yeah, George Orwell comes to mind, but there, I mean, it's funny because George Orwell is one who, like, literally, I think worked with the State Department, right? But there are tons and tons of other ones as well, right? I've got the charm to make live troubleshooting work. Oh shit, people are gonna be like, I'm never coming back to this stream. Anyway, so libs do not, for some reason, year after year, libs do not see that they are going to be called commies no matter what, right? It's like that 1984 book. Libs always think that if they just pander to the right, then the right will accept them. I don't know how it happens. I don't know why they have this perennial belief that someday the right wing is going to start being good and stop calling them commies and shit. But they do. They have this belief, and they have literally since liberals were liberals, right? Since the Southern strategy. So they have always denounced communists because they feel like it'll make Republicans stop calling them communists, and Republicans still always call them communists. Yeah, there you go. Kenny said the PDF of the CIA talking about how the non-communist left are so useful, and they use examples of French intellectuals who became disenchanted with communism and gave anti-communists in general a big boost. The same thing happened in the USSR, right? Towards the end, the academics were entirely anti-communist. So it's always very funny to me. It's always very funny to me when people talk about how colleges are Marxist. I was talking about this in the Discord today. It's like I've never met a fucking Marxist in college, right? All of my professors were decidedly anti-Marxist. They were fucking libs, most of them, but they were not Marxist by any means. And like one guy in the Discord had a professor, and one person in Discord had a professor who was like an actual Marxist, and nobody else was. Shit. So communists constantly get excluded from jobs, conferences, leftist publications, right? If you're too much of a communist, you're not going to be able to write for fucking Mother Jones or whatever, right? On and on and on. So people like Chomsky will get held up by the left as a shining star and a beacon of leftist thought, and he is one of the most anti-communist people around. Comrade Clever Name, talk to Comrade Grimm on Twitter if you don't mind, or T and Spittin. Y'all talk to them. Kamala Harris's dad is a Marxist. So is fucking Pete Buttigieg's parents. It's so funny to me, right? But this left anti-communism is pervasive, and it is personally, I think it's evil, right? Because it makes people feel like communism is a bad word when communism is the only thing that can actually save us. Yeah, Pete's parents are Marxist too. Isn't that funny? It's just fucking funny as fuck. Okay, so opposes all. Yeah, that is sad, Jamie. That's silliness. So what was it like in the USSR? One thing I love about Blackshirts and Reds is that Parenti talks about a subject, and when he's done, he's like, let's talk about something else. So going through this book, like when I was making these slides, I was like, well, there's no transition here. We're just talking about something else now. So anyway, y'all strap in because we're going someplace different. What was it like in the USSR? Um, well, there was less economic inequality. The income spread between the highest and lowest paid was something like 5 to 1, right? So when they always talk about like the communists living in lavish palaces and shit, right? It's it's silliness. It's just silliness. Many communist leaders, like people who are at the absolute top, right? I don't necessarily always agree with the way that the USSR was set up, but we can say for certain that the people at the top of the USSR were living in normal ass apartments a lot of times, right? They maybe had like sometimes there would be like a dacha or whatever, but there would be that would be simply for entertaining foreign guests. Like they didn't live there most of the time. You know what I mean? So it's really funny how there was an absolute grift, like for the Nazis. Like Hitler literally lined his pockets with Nazi money, right? He charged a fee for having his face on stamps, right? And of course they had his face on the stamps, right? So he got a kickback from every stamp that was sold, right? Y'all think they were doing that in the USSR? No way. So is that true, Dickie? That's really funny. Um, so, Tempest, why do you think it could be subverted by fascists? Anyway, I'll wait for your answer in the chat. The productive forces were not exclusively organized to amass wealth, right? So, um, exclusive Orpheus, that's hilarious. Uh, so that means something, right? Even though there were still rich people in the USSR, there were still people who owned some of the means of production in the USSR who was not the state, right? They never actually transitioned to full socialism. The productive forces that were controlled by the state were not focused on amassing wealth, and as a result, they were able to do things. So, like people always talk about starvation in Russia. Well, guess what? In the areas where they had starvation, there were periodic famines for like throughout time, basically, right? Same thing in China. So guess what happened after the famines that everybody knows about? How many famines there were? Zero. And that is very important to talk about, right? That whenever they actually got their shit together, after the revolution was over and things were kind of calmed down, the famine stopped. So places that had had famines like every decade or so before the time that the famines had happened that everybody knows about, no longer had famines after that, right? So those productive forces being organized not around amassing wealth really fucking matters. Yeah, Tempest, it's true, but don't worry. If you have a particularly socialist speech that is like ain't no fucking boogaloo boy gonna be using this speech that I'm making right now to talk about their program. You know what I mean? Nobody's gonna be twisting this shit to turn it into some kind of racist vehicle into socialist young people's minds. You know what I mean? So you're gonna be all right. They had a priority on human services, right? So this is one of the saddest things to me is that so many people in the former USSR were in this frenzy to get all of the options and goods of capitalism because they truly believed that they were going to do something like keep all of the good shit of socialism and just reintroduce a little bit of capitalism, and then everything was going to be okay, right? That was like Glasnost and Perestroika was literally about that, like introducing Western ideas and Western production techniques little by little. Well, guess what? Of course, as soon as they open the floodgates, capital floods back in and ruins everything, right? So all the things that they had, high wages, the ability to pay for your housing with just a little bit of your salary, food accessibility, having good jobs, right? All this shit went away, right? So things like I'm pro sex worker, right? But when you see a sudden spike in prostitution in an area because people can't get other jobs, that is a social issue, right? So when that happened in the USSR, whenever they have all of a sudden things like child prostitution are starting to come back, right? It is a clear sign that people who used to have jobs that they could take care of their family suddenly do not have those jobs anymore, right? So when the priority was on human services, people were guaranteed jobs, even if the jobs weren't great, even if they weren't in love with the jobs, they were guaranteed a job, and no one had to do things like be in a financial position where they had to sell their children. So there was no pursuit of capital penetration into other countries. This is something that, is argued today. When they talk about China, they talk about debt to African nations, and that's something that I don't get into because I don't think it's worthwhile. Simply because when you talk about what the United States does and what other imperialist countries do on a regular basis, where they purposefully destabilize countries and then give them predatory loans and keep them in this cycle of buying goods and selling things for cheap, right? It is. We can just talk about how fucking terrible that is, right? So that is something that the USSR did not do, right? So, continuing, we can say that none of this was perfect socialism, but it was better than nothing, right? So even if you're a purist socialist, right? Even if you look at the USSR as a colossal failure that never reached socialism, I hope you can look at this list and say, okay, there's not huge income inequality. People are able to buy shit. People are able to get their needs met. Maybe not perfectly, but the vast majority of people, nobody has to sell their kids. There's no child labor, right? There's no destabilizing other countries just to sell your goods. Like, those are all fucking good things, right? Those are good things. So what Parenti is saying here is this: the Soviet Union was not perfect, but when we just look at some of these small things, we can say that this is a whole fucking hell of a lot better than what's going on in the United States, right? Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you, Kenny. So wasn't it less efficient? Yes, of course. Of course it was less efficient, right? The managers are not focused on technical advancement because that would lead to their own obsolescence sometimes, right? So they absolutely had technical advancements, right? Like, they made a lot of things that, like, the United States used spies to steal. So I'm not saying that there was no science, but what I am saying is things within companies, right? Like efficiency advancements, things like that modern companies talk about with like Kaizens and shit like that, like looking for places where you can improve the efficiency, lean manufacturing, shit like that. They didn't have that in Russia, right? Because why would the manager be worried about trying to make themselves obsolete? Also, they didn't get rewarded for risk, right? So nowadays, you have people who look like me who end up in middle management, and you know how they make their name? It's so funny. This is I know a lot of y'all already know about this, but there is a pattern where young white men will try very risky things when they are in lower management positions, and many of them end up failing, and so they end up costing the company a lot of money, and they end up leaving in disgrace, right? But every now and again, one of them will do something that ends up really drastically saving the company money. And so what happens? They get rocketed up to higher level positions. So you have these people who have this incentive to do very risky things, but it is entirely for their own benefit. And the problems that it causes are swept under the rug, while the benefits, the ones who win, the ones who got lucky, right? Those ones get like articles in Forbes magazine, right? They get called mavericks and innovators and shit like that, right? Well, for every innovator that did something awesome that won, there's 100 innovators who did something that totally fucked over their company. But we don't hear about them, right? They don't write Forbes articles about that type person. So anyway, continuing. The supplies for industry technical advancement weren't generally readily available. They had scientific supplies available for scientists, but as far as like internal research and development money or supplies, that just wasn't really around so much. So that's why you see images of the USSR and some of the factories look kind of old and decrepit, right? Because they're not constantly modernizing their own shit. It would be interesting, Z Drifted, right, about all the startups that failed because of some radical innovative technique that management was trying. Dorbs. Shit. So there was little incentive to make better machines for the other factories, right? So if there was a group that was in a different spot in the supply chain, right? Like, let's say you got a factory that's making cogs, and there's a company over here that makes clocks, and the clock company wants your cogs to be the best as possible. Well, the better you make your shit, the more they'll sell, which means the more you'll have to make. So there was little incentive for them to help each other across the supply chain. So it became less efficient. It didn't stop, right? Doesn't mean that the industry all ground to a halt, but there was just not that much, there was not that pressure, that economic pressure that exists under capitalism. And the companies did not set the pay values for things. They did not set the prices for things, right? That was divorced from the real value of things. So people just use shit kind of inefficiently, right? If, like, let's say they had to make some small little piece. Well, if all they had was big stock pieces, well, then they just cut the hell out of the stock until they got to the small piece. Because, like, fuck it, not my stock. Some, like, this costs the same, big piece costs the same small piece. I'll just buy a big piece just in case, right? So there was some inefficiency as far as that goes. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Who said that, Kenny? Patter Kimball, thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate that. And yeah, I'll see you next week, hopefully. So some more inefficiencies here. Productive capacity was underutilized because in the capitalist system we have this lean manufacturing concept of, like, everything has to be focused on the bottom line. If anything's extraneous that doesn't help the bottom line, cut it, right? Cut everything that isn't helping until you get down to the leanest possible, smallest core of manufacturing, and the overproduction be damned, but also any wrench in the machine throwing it off be damned as well. We're only focused on this quarter, so as long as everything runs good for this quarter, we'll be good. That's wild, Kenny. That's some wild shit for real. Y'all read that. Y'all read that in the chat. That's very interesting. Yeah, good idea, Tempest. So yeah, productive capacity was underutilized, but they also didn't have, like, huge overproduction problems. They had logistics problems, but they didn't struggle with overproduction. If overproduction happened, they just didn't work. Improvements in production would lead to an increase in quota. So a quota system is obviously not the best system, or a quota system alone is not the best system for figuring this shit out, right? Whenever we do a socialist government in the future, we're going to have to figure out ways of keeping people motivated to keep on working, or to keep them feeling like they're actually taking part in something. The psychological aspect was missing when it came to the way that quotas were set up. So people would take long breaks. Like, literally, they would just stop their factory job. They'd tell their boss, "Hey, I'm taking a couple hours off. I got to go do some shopping." And the boss would just fucking let them go. Like, this is not made up. Parenti gives cited sources that talk about how this kind of thing was common in the USSR. They would just be goofing off. They'd be moving slow, kind of having fun at work, right? Clerks in stores would literally just chill and talk to each other while a line would form. Toadster, they have these all over. I got my partner got this one for me on Etsy, but I think they got them on many different websites. So finally, doing worse work on the farm would actually lead to people getting more subsidies, because it would look like the farm was struggling because of, like, bad sun, bad earth, bad water, or whatever. And so, so they would purposefully fuck off. And so the farms would get more money as a result. That's a bad system. We have to have something to overcome that, right? So I'm not saying that the USSR was great. Parenti's not saying that the USSR was great. He's saying that there are problems inherent in socialism with efficiency, and obviously with the democratic aspect and with the capitalism creeping back in aspect. There are problems with socialist countries up till now, but there are things that are good, and the ones that I want to really focus on that are good were with this shit, right? Priority on human services is just something that I can't even imagine, right? I do love the idea of being able to fuck off during the day, right? I love the idea of, like, just taking a 2-hour break and going for a jog and coming back and my boss not caring. But nonetheless, I'm okay with working as I do. But what I really wish I had was a priority on human services. I wish I never had to worry about being able to pay to go see the shrink. I wish I never had to worry about if I needed a freaking procedure done, can I afford this, or am I going to go into medical debt forever? I wish that I was not, freaking balls deep in student loans and shit. You know what I mean? That's what I care about. So when we look at these things, these successes, all that shit stacked up afterwards, like the low quality of blue jeans or the not too many choices in the toy store or shit like that, right? When we look at those things stacked up against these things, human services, right? Damn. Like, I will wear one pair of shitty blue jeans forever if I can just, like, not worry about if I have a mental breakdown, if I'll get killed by cops. I would love to live in a place where my friends and family members who are non-white are not forced to put themselves into terrible situations on a regular basis just by going out their door, right? To risk death by going out their door just because of the way the police treat them, right? I would love to live in that society. And so for me, not being able to listen to Western music or whatever the fuck, right? I'm not so worried about that, right? I'm not so worried about that when it compares to these other things that I really deeply care about. And that's what I think, that's what the Russians lost sight of, right? They wanted all that shit. They wanted all that. They wanted the money. They wanted the Western toys and shit. And they thought that they would be able to keep the services. They thought they took the services for granted and thought that they weren't going anywhere. And what they lost was everything. They lost fucking everything. 50% reduction in buying power. Overnight explosion of unemployment, right? They lost everything. So, yeah, there we go. Comrade Kenny says, yeah, I had someone challenge me on that. The USSR sucked because my parents said they couldn't get ketchup or blue jeans, and I asked if they considered the sanctions and pointed out how the U.S. sanctioned Jamaica's socialist government, and people to this day say socialism doesn't work and not capitalism will fight like hell to make sure it doesn't. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. The capitalists are going to attack every single socialist government that ever pops up anywhere, right? Tyrano says I would take no electricity or running water over bombing innocent people. Yeah, exactly. If we could end imperialism, if we could end neocolonialism, yeah, I'd be okay. I would be fine if I had to have a little victory garden in my backyard or if I had to share an apartment with somebody else, right? That would be okay with me as long as I could go to sleep at night knowing that my government had not taken part in killing millions of people over a couple of years over some fucking oil, right? So yeah. That's all I got for today. That's all I got for today. I appreciate y'all coming. It's always fun to talk about Parenti. It's fun talking on the chat. The chat was fucking lit today. I really appreciate everything. Who should we raid? Who's streaming today? Who's streaming right now? Let me jump on my phone and figure out whose stream we're gonna jump onto. Let's see. We got La Sue is streaming. Comic-Con streaming. Ghost Coalition is streaming. Alex his A is streaming. What do y'all think? Let's see. How about we raid La Sue? That'd be fun. Yeah, I'm glad you made it too, Off-World Josh. I appreciate that. Yeah, let's do Sue. All right. Raid. Hold on, I gotta figure this shit out. Raid. Lost Sue. All right, y'all, we're gonna raid Lost Sue. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. It's a great stream. I will see y'all on Tuesday. I don't know what I'm gonna talk about, but it's a lot of fun. Thank you so much. And I will see you on the flip side.